This is Realigned and Unfiltered.
Together, we're peeling back the layers, exploring consciousness, and transforming life's messiness into meaning. So, here we are today, Diana and Carly, the co founders and co hosts of this podcast, Realigned and Unfiltered. And we're so excited to really explore all types of the way we find ourselves now. As we're releasing, as we're remembering, as we're discovering, we are all in the process of becoming.
Yes.
And one of the things that can be so helpful is understanding how the brain works. And so
Mm.
right? So we were thinking today it would be a great idea to actually interview Diana, our resident brain nerd. So, Diana, you can give us a great education today on what you do with the mind and what you understand about the mind. We both
Yeah.
work with people in the mind. We both work with people's brains and thinking processes, but we come at it from different angles. So I think it's really cool to interview you today. So I'm going to do my official introduction now.
Okay.
So, Diana is the founder of a company called NeuroAlchemy. She has a master's of science in multidisciplinary studies and a certificate in leadership, as well as certificates and training in NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Reprogramming. NeuroAlchemy, Diana's company, it mixes NLP, neuroscience, brainwave entrainment, and alchemy together for an incredible. This is designed to not just fix patterns, but fully transform identity. So that sounds amazing. And like a whole bunch of work people maybe need broken down for them a little bit. And,
Yes. We will
I,
do that in this episode.
so I wonder, Dee, if you could start maybe by explaining, maybe we could break down each one of these elements. So maybe you start with neuro-linguistic reprogramming. What is that? Or how does neuroscience impact what it is you're doing? You
Right.
start.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think this is going to be a great episode. I think, in this we'll dive into like a topic that really touches everybody. Like it's applicable to everybody. It's understanding like the subconscious mind, how it shapes our life, and how we could actually reprogram it using techniques and tools like neurolinguistic programming, and then discussing my unique approach that I use in neuroalchemy. So,
Okay, yes, good. So you mentioned
mhm.
subconscious mind. Maybe you could give us a little bit of a definition and understanding of what is the subconscious mind and how are we supposed to know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think I want to know right before that, actually understanding how neuroscience comes to play in all this, because really the neuroscience aspect of everything that I'm going to talk about is what backs up everything that I'm going to talk about. So it's understanding that the brain's ability and the power it has to rewire itself, right? Like the brain is not fixed. It rewires itself based on experience, based on the habits we have, the beliefs we have, the emotional patterns we have that create these neural pathways that create the identity that we have, right? So repeated thoughts, emotions, behaviors create these strong neural networks that are reflective in the experience that we have in our reality.
Right, and it actually becomes habitual. We run a neural network for so long, so often about a certain thing. That's the habit that we have when we think about something, right?
Yeah.
I understand this from working with my clients. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, and we'll get into the work that you do, but you do a lot of like nervous system dysregulation, right? Like when someone is caught up in that fight or flight kind of response, and understanding like the neuroscience behind that also helps with installing new ways of being, new beliefs, and new thoughts to rewire the architecture. Really like understanding how the neuroscience just explains how we could rewire the architecture that we have set up so we could design a new map of reality and go out in the world in that way.
Love
So,
that. The architecture. Okay, give us the architecture of mind.
yes. Okay, so like I think a good place to start also is understanding what is the subconscious mind, because It is so important. Like the subconscious mind is really what we are using to run 95% of our life on a daily basis. So like, I mean, I want you guys to really just think about this on a day-to-day basis. Like, are when you wake up in the morning, are you thinking, "Oh, let me open my eyes now. Let me move my left finger and my left," are you like, create you're not consciously thinking about the things that you're doing, right? You are on autopilot, and that autopilot mode is derived from your subconscious mind. So it runs 95% of what you do on a daily basis. So that is like huge. Only
Like the autonomic nervous system then is being run by the subconscious mind? Okay.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so, like, only 5% of that time are you consciously actually thinking about and you focused on what you're doing. So, when you really think about it, the subconscious mind is really what holds our life, right? Right? It holds all our beliefs there, it holds our emotions, our habits, our identity is all in this subconscious place. Um, and the way I like to think about it is thinking of the subconscious mind kind of like the behind the scenes manager of your life.
Okay.
And I'll give us some analogies kind of to describe it, but it pretty much it runs in the background and it influences how you think, how you feel, how you act, even without even realizing it. So I've described it before where you imagine your subconscious mind like a filter or a pair of glasses that you put on. And depending if that color of the glasses that you put on has a certain color or shade to them, like if they're, you know, pretty pink or whatnot, it's that you're looking through those lens into the world and everything has that filter, right? So if the filter that you have on, the lens that you have on is full of fear or doubt or unhealed pain, then even good things that come up in your life can still look negative or threatening to you. But if the subconscious filter that you have on, the subconscious program that you have running is full of hope and beliefs in what you think is possible, you'll start noticing opportunities and love come up and connections, that you're like, oh, the way that you're filtering the world is going to be beneficial for you.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, like, when I have a client who has a real victim mentality, so I'm wearing my victim glasses because probably something
right,
happened in your early life that kind of taught you you're often a victim, and now suddenly you wear your victim glasses, and everything from grocery bag broke on my way to the car, like everything happens to me. Is
right.
that belief that rather than just like, "Oh, that's annoying, the grocery bag broke." You have this belief system that says like, "Of course this happened to you."
Mhm,
That's
mhm,
a
yeah, yeah, yes, and
okay.
let's get into a little bit more of that. So, that's why to your point, it's so important to make sure that the subconscious is programmed with the subconscious mind is programmed to support the life you want, right? Not the one that's shaped by the past pains that we've had or the limiting beliefs that we've grown up with. So when we change our subconscious filter, the world around us begins to look different. It begins to feel different. Even though it's the same world, it's that power of doing the inner work where you just start, oh, life seems different. And so,
This is kind of the difference between being, disempowered and being empowered, the way
yeah.
you shift your filter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we think about the subconscious mind, it's like a data warehouse. So that's another way to think about it, right? It never sleeps. It stores and manages your memories, your past experiences. So things that you experienced from early childhood, traumas, even to like your favorite meal, right? Like those imprinting memories. Um, they also store like our beliefs, so the programming that we've absorbed, the programming that we've the programming that we've had from our parents, our culture, our religion, society, or just general repeated thoughts. Um, it's where it also stores our skills. So things like riding a bike, right? you start off not knowing, but you practice, and then it becomes a skill. It turns into something that is on autopilot. You know how to ride a bike, you know how to drive a car, right? You wake up in the morning, you walk. It's a skill that you've repeated enough to where it now runs on autopilot.
Okay.
And then it also stores emotional imprints. So those times in our lives where that carried very strong emotional charges, right? Very significant emotional experiences. And then again, to what you mentioned earlier, it's like those body functions habits, right? Like the regulation of your heartbeat, digestion, hormones,
That's
things
our
that,
autonomic nervous system, those things that are happening without us having to think about the automatic, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
all of our yeah,
So So yeah, anything that you've thought, that you felt, that has just been repeated enough times or experienced enough times that it doesn't require any more of your constant conscious attention, that's what gets filed in the subconscious mind. So again, thinking about it like a huge warehouse storing all of that. And it's
and then when
far
sorry, and then whenever we do anything, whenever something comes up that we need to, like, have a thought about or have a feeling about, we just reach into the warehouse, and the warehouse is like, "Don't worry, we already know how we think about this. Don't worry
yeah.
how we feel about this. Here you go. Here's your information you need to take in this new experience."
Right. So the subconscious mind is much bigger than what the conscious mind can keep track of, right? So again, thinking about subconscious mind is 95% of what's happening every day. Only
Yeah.
5% of the time we're conscious of we're actually doing. This is what is just so fascinating to me, and this is why I love this so much, is because we have so much information around us all the time that if we didn't have a filtering system, if we didn't have a way to kind of pull things together, then we, like a computer, would be kind of fried with an overload of input. So we have a filtering system, and one of the main filtering systems I like talking about, I like to call him the homie Raz. It's original.
Homie Raz?
That's the
I'm
way,
taking
like, I have thought about this filter that got my back, the Raz.
okay, so
And you
homie
could think about the Raz, it's the reticular activating system.
reticular
And thinking about
activating.
this like your filter manager, it's like your search engine that is going into your subconscious mind. So out of the billions of pieces of data that's coming at us every second of the day, of the hour, of the minute, the RAS decides what gets passed up into conscious awareness. And it doesn't judge, meaning it doesn't care if you talk, if it's something that's negative, if something that's false. It simply follows what your beliefs are and what is of emotional importance to you. So, for example, like deciding you want to get a red car. This is a very analogy that's thrown out there a lot, is like, oh, I just bought a red car. And then all of a sudden you're seeing that same red car everywhere, right? Because
Yeah.
the RAS has automatically said, oh, that car is important to you. So let me filter out reality based on what you've decided to focus on.
That's really cool. I actually identify with that because I remember when I was about 13 or 14, I decided that the Mustang was my favorite car. Ford Mustang. And I just remember seeing this one Ford Mustang, I think it was blue, and I was just like, "That is the coolest car ever." And suddenly I realized how many Mustangs there were out driving around on this.
Hmm.
I saw them, but I thought that Mustang that I saw was the very first Mustang I had ever seen.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and something else really cool about, what I mentioned, it doesn't take negatives. It's like if I tell you, "Hey, Carly, don't think about a blue elephant," what did you just think about?
Yeah,
A blue
100%.
elephant, yeah.
And then
So,
depending on what my systems inside of me are, maybe then I start feeling really bad for feeling about the blue elephant because you told me I shouldn't.
yeah.
Shame, have a shame filter, or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And so we have this filtering system, and the RAS, it doesn't work alone, right? It's built off of other filters that decides what gets through. And because there's so much data, right? So there's three general things that we go through when we filter. We have to delete certain information, because if you don't delete it, it gets overwhelmed. And again, what you could consciously process is very tiny bit of information. We distort information as well. So meaning that we kind of bend experiences to match what we believe, and that's something that, um, for example, let's say someone gives a comment, a general like comment, like a neutral comment that is such as like, like, I can't think of some, let me think of an example.
Like when somebody says you look good,
Yeah.
you could
And
automatically
then
think, are you saying that because I didn't look good last time you saw me?
right, exactly. So you're distorting that comment, right? It
Right.
or if someone gives you a comment, and then you carry abandonment wounds, you automatically relate that comment to to reinforce the abandonment issues that you have, or something along those lines. So we distort reality, we delete certain information, and we also generalize experiences that feel like truth to us. So example, um, I'm someone who, I've been cheated on before. All men are cheaters. Life is so, or like life is so unfair, or because this one thing happens, ugh, life is horrible. So we generalize experiences.
Okay, yeah. So I talk about that with my clients. What are the cognitive distortions that you're utilizing,
Mm,
right? And
hmm
is overgeneralization. Um,
hmm
what happens if you get cheated on 3 times in a row? Let's say we're gonna this analogy. So you get cheated on, then you move to someone else, you get cheated on, then you move to someone else, you get cheated on. Is that because you believe you're going to get cheated on, so you pick a cheater?
It's kind of like you have gotten your RAS out there. It really, I mean, this is a breakdown again of identity that we would get into for specific one-on-one scenarios, but it really is like, how are you thinking about it? But I think there's many factors with that. Obviously, it's like, yes, your RAS is out there looking for that because you already have that belief. Is it really embedded into what you believe of men? If you don't, then you're providing space and opportunity for a non-cheater to come into your life. So it really depends again how heavily filtered that information is coming through. So
Okay.
so what feeds that also is, you know in addition to how we distort, delete, and generalize information, there are other filters that are embedded with that, which are like our values, our beliefs, our attitudes about things, our memories, and then the language. And this is how we'll get into this with like neuro-linguistic programming, but the words that we use to shape what feels real to us.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did a lot of talking, but I mean, that's what
No,
this is
this is
about.
great. Bit of a background in the subconscious mind. Do we need to talk more about neuroscience to understand the next part, or would you be willing to jump into explaining what is neuro-linguistic reprogramming? I think people may have heard about NLP before. It's out there, right? It's in the ether. People are hearing NLP, but what is it and how does it work with now what we understand about the subconscious mind?
So yes, understanding, the subconscious mind and how it's filtered, and then how it's brought up and put forth as the reality that we're experiencing in life. Then the next question is like, okay, well, that's cool. How the heck do I program my subconscious mind to help me?
And I think understanding this is an important part to say, we are not stuck with what's in our warehouse, right? Everything that's gone into our warehouse over the period of life that we've had so far, maybe we come from a really abusive childhood. Maybe we come from abandonment. Maybe we come from trauma or abuse or, something really hard and really heavy. And that's really in there. That's really in our subconscious. And now we're walking around in the world with those beliefs, those expectations, those things kept coming at us. It can feel a little hopeless. I mean, usually I meet people at the stage where they're just like, I just can't understand why the same things keep happening over and over and over. So,
Hmm
what you are explaining is that with from a neurobiology perspective, our brains are mushy rubber and
Hmm.
lots of gray matter, and everything that's in there is not fixed, and everything that's in the warehouse is not fixed. We can clean warehouse. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, we could select what we're bringing in from the warehouse into our reality, right? Yeah, and one thing I want to bring up here is that our ego is kind of like the CEO of this whole operation. So I know
Well,
they're
the
this is kind of like, oh, I think this is a whole topic on its own, but I want to just briefly mention, like the ego and the way I see it as its job is to maintain our identity and survival. So it's like, who do I think I am and what feels safe for me? And so the ego is like the CEO of the subconscious mind. So the Raz is out here filtering information. The homie, he's like, like, all right, I got you. You want this? I'll filter all the information for you. And the CEO of that is the ego, who actually interprets like what gets through to ensure that it matches the identity that you have for it to survive.
That's I think that's a really great example. This CEO ego and the ego's job is identity and survival. So
Yes.
anything that we say that we are, our ego is like, right, okay. So let's make
Hmm.
sure that's on our nameplate,
Yep.
and only things that align with that come through. So let's just say, for example, like maybe people listening to this podcast, I grew up identifying as, let's say, a certain religion. And enough has happened for me, or I'm in this stage of awakening or deconstruction that I no longer actually want to identify with that religion. Ego's going to have a really hard time with that because the ego
Mm.
long time going, this is my identity and this is my survival, identifying with this identity. And so then we have this like ego battle going on,
Yeah.
with this new rising coming from us, from our inner spirit, let's say. I feel like that's important to draw in because that is kind of the place we are finding ourselves in right now, right?
Yeah. 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 And I think I could bring that in, and how it kind of ties into neuroalchemy in general. Like, NLP is very, it's not specifically in neuroscience. Again, neuroscience backs up NLP. So NLP practitioners, they talk about it very, like, I guess scientifically, but to me it really is spirit work as well. There's so much that's relevant from the spirit world to the science of all of how all of this works, right? So we'll definitely get into that.
So yeah, so I think that's a good distinction to make is neuro-linguistic reprogramming is quite a scientific, science-based, science-backed um, change program.
Techniques,
And
yeah.
you understand that as
Mhm.
somebody who works in programming and as, the person who understands the way things work. And you're quite a spiritual person and did have a very spiritual experience that you decided to kind of wrap this together, which is where we meet because I come at everything from a spirit perspective.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
and I'm a psychologist, so my psychology is very spiritually based, and we're meeting in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's just so exciting to me to kind of like think about it and how it all comes together.
So
But
break down NLP for us from more of the science perspective, and then we'll weave spirit in just like we do in everything. And
yeah,
I am
yeah, yeah.
taking notes. I invite our listeners to take notes. I am a note taker.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if
And
I'm here, chairing this episode, I'm still like, teach. Let's go. I'm here to learn.
yeah, yeah.
Don't mind me and my pen.
No, no, it's all good. Um, Carly, this is why before I get into like, actually using the tools to reprogram the subconscious mind, what I really just want to touch base on is understanding this is why two people can live through the same event and experience it completely different. Because for an example, there's two people that could be in the car driving somewhere, they're listening to the song. to one person, the song gets them in a whole happy mood and vibe because it triggers all these good memories and feelings. And to the other person in the same car listening to the same song, it reminds them of a horrible memory, something that just brings them to a really bad place. So you're seeing proof of your beliefs in your daily life through these filters that are working.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's also like a good piece to kind of understand, the different experiences that
Yeah.
we each have.
I think that actually makes really, really great sense. Like there was this band that I used to love to listen to, and I love to listen to this band with a close friend of mine. Um, and he passed away tragically. And every time I hear that band now, doesn't matter what song, every time I hear that band, my heart feels broken. And
Mm,
yet, great band, and people love to listen to that band, but every time they listen to it, for me, all I experience is heartbreak, and pain. So, yeah, that's a great example because I think everyone has that one song or that one band that they just can't hear anymore, even though it's great. That's good.
yeah.
Okay, so that's an example of how the subconscious mind does its thing.
Yeah. And we
Okay,
just keep replaying the same programs, unless we do something to change the programs that are running.
okay, Diane,
And
what do we do to change the program that is running?
yes. Okay. So the main ways that we could say change the subconscious filters or the subconscious programs that we have running are through repetition,
Okay,
through emotion, through visualization, and through being in relaxed brainwave states. And I'll break that down a little bit more, but once you start really with becoming aware of the thoughts that you're having, the
mhm,
beliefs that you have, and the emotional patterns that run automatically, like
mhm,
I'm not good enough or nothing ever works out for me, these beliefs get installed again from past experiences or trauma, not because they're true. So, first is, once you become aware of them, you could begin to then interrupt those patterns
yep,
and install the new ones that reflect who it is that you want to be and how it is that you want to feel. So that's where neurolinguistic programming is the tools is one of the tools that I use to rewire the subconscious mind.
okay,
And so I could define let's get into defining like NLP and in what it is. So NLP, it helps us rewire those unhelpful thoughts, those behavior patterns by working with the way our mind naturally processes language and experience. So, the neural part of neurolinguistic programming refers to the brain and the nervous system. So, it's a way that the nervous system is taking in the reality through the five senses, right?
mhm,
The linguistic part of it is the language that we're using. So, becoming aware of how communication is occurring within ourselves and with other people, right? The language. And then the programming is the patterns or the habits that we've developed over time. So it's understanding the mind like a computer, and this is something which was a big aha for me, right? So because I worked in software. So understanding that the mind is like a computer and the thought patterns are like the software that are running the programs that are determining our experience.
and
So
everybody has their own individualized computer. Nobody's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
same. And
Yeah.
yet the processes with which they, encode the information actually is the same, which is why
Hmm.
somebody who doesn't know somebody else's experience can actually say, "Let's pause it here, let's interrupt it here, let's throw this in here, let's, add a bunch of zeros and ones,"
Yeah.
from the science perspective. Okay, cool.
So NLP really does. It's a set of processes. It's a set of processes, a set of techniques that restructure the mind toward that positive functioning, the way that we're thinking, the way that we're behaving, and aligning the conscious with the unconscious mind. So it's to shift again those patterns that we have running that are keeping us stuck, whether it's how we think of ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, or how we react and get triggered with certain situations in our life, and then being able to morph that, reprogram that to a more empowered or aligned version of who you truly want to be.
I like the way that you said that, aligning the conscious with the unconscious, because I get a lot of clients in who are like, I don't want to think this. I want to think that. And it's like,
Mhm.
what do we do to implant the thing you want to think over top of the thing that you don't want to think so that it becomes your go-to? Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
that's what you're doing here.
yeah, and that's what was so fascinating to me, when I got into NLP, because it's really studying how people think and how they experience the world and the structure of their thinking,
Okay.
right? So it's not necessarily so much that I care what you're thinking about, but how you're thinking about it. And then changing the structure of how we're thinking about that experience. And so because that's what creates our subjective reality. I mean, there's reality, right? But we each have a subjective reality that we're each having. Again, how I explained through the filters that are coming through. Um, yeah,
Okay, so NLP works with the brain processes, the language used, and then the programming itself, and it helps to restructure and align the conscious with the unconscious through a bunch of processes. So you have
yeah,
like different
there's different
processes that you
process.
do. Okay, so maybe it would be helpful because that conceptually, I understand what you're saying, but maybe it would be helpful if we actually ran through 1 or 2 of the processes so that people had a chance to see what that means. Because I think sometimes,
Yeah,
like, I understand all the words that you're saying, but when you put them together and I have to paint a picture of the concept, I can't quite get there. I think we'll continue on the track of understanding what neuroalchemy is and how it actually happened, because I think when people understand actually where you birthed neuroalchemy from, pun intended, you'll understand in the future, friends. Um, that will be useful, and so maybe I'll just volunteer myself um, for you to run a couple of these processes with. So we'll do that as a bonus at the end of this episode, or maybe kind of adjacent to this episode. And we'll run through a couple of processes and people can actually see it in action. I'll choose a real thing. I'm happy to get, peeled back and unfiltered here for people. And I think then getting to actually see, what does NLP do? What does it look like in practice will be helpful. So let's move on from NLP now, just to sort of stay on track here. I do not know what brainwave entrainment is, and I really need you to define that for me. And we will come back to NLP in our little bonus at the end.
yes,
Okay.
okay,
So the next thing on the list was brainwave entrainment. And I'm a
yes.
psychologist and I still feel like I need you to explain that to me. So go ahead and explain us brainwave entrainment and then maybe you can wrap it all up. How does it all work together?
Yeah, absolutely. So think of brainwave entrainment as a gentle way, a gentle guide that will bring your brain into a specific state for you to feel like calm, focused, or deeply relaxed using sound frequencies. I specifically use sound frequencies. Brainwave entrainment, it's a technique. Uses either rhythmic sound, light, or vibration to gently guide the brain back into a specific brainwave state, again, for that relaxation, that focus, that healing. So really it's bringing the mind into a specific state so that you are receptive to the processes and to the information that I'm giving you. So a lot of people that are either in this fight or flight, or they've just gone through a traumatic experience, are very much tied up in their nervous system, right? Even if they try to work through a meditation or a visualization, they're like, I can't, like they're just too stuck. So
It's very
I have,
sticky. It's very sticky in the nervous
yeah,
system. It's very sticky in fight or flight. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So I use brainwave entrainment as the tool to help gently shift the brain into the ideal state for transformation. So, quieting the critical mind, the overwhelmed mind, to open the portal of me entering the subconscious mind so you could receive that new belief. So you could go through that visualization and those upgrades with much greater ease and effectiveness, really.
Oh, okay. So it's as if, let's say, you're all stuck up in the nervous system like this, and then
Hmm.
you're using sound waves, and those sound waves slowly but surely kind of pull all that apart and let it go open. And then
Yes.
when it's open, you deliver the NLP and you deliver this like this new way of implanting basically into the brain
Hmm. Hmm.
because of
Neurohypnotics, yeah, like neuro language, right? Yeah.
all right, so you use neurohypnotics and neuro language into an open vessel, which you've gently opened with actual sound waves designed for that. And then they're
Hmm.
able to sort of like close on those and begin alchemizing that into
Yes.
their new
Yes.
system.
Yeah. So, oh, this is what's so I'm just so excited about like what this all the work that I'm doing because it is the NLP processes on their own are amazing. They're, transformational processes. I've included brainwave entrainment because it's something that I specifically have experienced. And when I experienced it, it was just the sounds. So it was able just listening to the sounds because they're very rhythmic. That you listen to them with headphones. There's different tones that you use, and I create them. I put them together in a way that if you are like in this active area of thinking, I bring in the brainwave straight like an alpha to a theta that will support, more of that relaxed state. And so just simply getting into a relaxed state, Carly, I mean, as you know, also allows so much healing to come through, so much of like flow and just, yeah, that free flowing feeling of like, oh, life is not that bad, like it kind of just helps on its own, like shift that. So combining NLP and brainwave entrainment together really works as a powerhouse. Like like to describe it, to recode beliefs.
Yeah, it's like taking a relaxant for your nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take a relaxant with the beats, and then you can just kind of be like, okay, what's this new thing? Versus like your ego's fighting, like, this is who we are. And your nervous system,
Yeah.
we have to protect ourselves. And like, it's
Hmm.
pretty hard for new beliefs to get in if you're like this. So
Hmm.
it's really attractive
Hmm.
look there. So if we give ourselves this little relaxant for our states,
Hmm.
then you're able to really do the work without so much resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And this all ties in also to what you're mentioning, like the alchemy of it all, right? Neuroalchemy, what that really is, when we think of the alchemical process as turning lead into gold. So neuroalchemy really is about transforming those heavy patterns that we have, limiting beliefs, grief in our subconscious mind into empowerment, resilience, and freedom, right? And so s- you want an example that, that I could walk you kind of through the different stages of neuroalchemy is the transformation of grief and your identity into empowerment. So,
So you have taken the concept of alchemy, taking these heavy patterns, these limiting beliefs, and turning them from lead into gold. And you're doing that using this brainwave entrainment. Just call it the muscle relaxant for the nervous system sound. And then using these processes to help people to be able to do that. Now, because I know you, I'm privy to how you came to each and every one of these things. And I think it's useful for people to know, and you are open about it. So, Diana, you came to each and every one of these things independent of each other on a healing journey of your own.
Yes.
Then decided instead of people having to go through what I went through, piecemealing all of this together to find healing, I'm going to bring it all together in one package and offer it to people who have experienced what I've experienced all in one
Mm,
place. And so I
mhm.
think this is the moment maybe where we dive a little bit into how this whole thing came about in your story. And then
Yes. Yes, I think that ties it all together so perfectly. Thank you, Carly. So yeah, I really dove deep into all of this when I went through I went through the lowest point in my life, which is when I lost my son via stillbirth. And I was, at that point I did have my master's. I understood, you know, some concepts, but when you are in it, the education really just kind of it fled. Really, it wasn't helping me. Like, the knowledge wasn't helping me. I needed, like, practical, I needed tools, I needed assistance. So then I came across the programs of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I came across brainwave entrainment in different phases of my grief that really shifted the way that I was perceiving my life. I found myself wanting to get into this, like, victim mentality where I was like, oh gosh, poor me. And I had enough awareness where I was like, no, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to dive into that. But I was aware that these feelings were very much coming up and they were valid. And I was allowing myself to feel them. I wasn't trying to bypass them, but I realized after a certain point of time, like, okay, I need to be able to move forward with this in a way that I can live and experience life and not be stuck in it, not be drowned in it forever, because it's what it felt like. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna get move forward in my life with this. I'm not trying to move on from my son. He's my son no matter what and will always be with me, but I want to move forward with him. I decided that I wanted to allow that to lead me into my transformation and how I could honor my son.
instead of dropping anchor in that moment in time and staying there while your life tries to continue,
Yeah.
really let it lead you and be a guiding light. I have a real nautical image of what you're saying. Suddenly the light is there and you're carrying on following it versus dropping anchor and staying stuck with the
Yeah.
storm around you. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it really, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. So yeah, so you realized the victim mentality was there. You realized this was the biggest, most unbelievable experience of grief. You realized the pain, you realized the feeling of I could easily get stuck here. And then you started looking for tools and for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what brought me to creating NeuroAlchemy, right? It's all of the things that I've learned, the tools that I've applied, um, the knowledge I've acquired into one program, into, so that the woman going through this, or really anybody going through any type of identity kind of crisis, it's a program that I put together that provides all the tools, all the guidance, the techniques that will help reshape those mental patterns, overcome those limitations, rebuilding your identity to promote that personal growth, that healing, and getting to that place of empowerment. So you learn how to decode the programs you have running, right? In your understanding what are the programs you have running. You bring them to your conscious awareness so that they no longer serve you. Then you program yourself using the processes that you learn in neuroalchemy. And from this new way of feeling, this new way of being, and the energy that you're putting out into the world, you start living from this place of empowerment. So really, this all started with me again with this moment that I was at my lowest, this moment of grief, pain, but really understanding and applying these tools and learning these tools, it's applicable to everything because the reality of our life and the experiences we have on earth is that shit is gonna keep coming up, like, right? Like, things never stop. Like, so understanding, like, okay, I have the tools to be able to kind of reframe, the tools to be able to recalibrate myself. So instead of grief or depression or whatever emotion, sadness comes in, and again, because it's going to come again, like events are going to happen in life. Instead of them being a year or months or weeks at a time, the experience of that is much shorter, and you have the tools within yourself to, all right, again, recalibrate, get myself together. So,
Yeah, and I think too, I think a really important thing here is realizing that your emotions are not you, right? So I don't know how much you dive into that with NLP or with neuroalchemy, but what I understand and what I work with my clients is when you're feeling an emotion, it's okay to be feeling
yeah,
that emotion. It's okay to say,
absolutely.
I am feeling sad. I am feeling grief. I am feeling stuck.
Mhm.
Not I am grief.
Right.
I am stuck. It's very different.
Very different.
Speak it. I guess that's the L, that's the language of it, right?
Mhm.
So it is okay.
And that's identity language. Using the I am is you're stating what your identity is. So it's very different when you disassociate and you put space between you and emotion
Right.
to where I am this. You're identifying with it, right?
Right, right. I always do,
Yeah.
I might even have one here. Oh, I don't. I always work with Post-its with my clients, just like I pink Post-it and I'll be like, "Okay, this is you. So this is you, Diana, right here. You notice how I didn't label you with fear? What I did or sadness, what I did was I put fear and I put sadness outside of you. Sad is something experiencing or looking at or noticing. Fear is something experiencing or looking at or noticing, but
Yeah.
you are your own I am.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
am Diana and I'm experiencing sadness right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
getting into now my work, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so
But it's very much related, right? It's identity work. Um and so yeah, so neuroalchemy really, again, just kind of to summarize it all up, is the NLP processes, the brainwave entrainment, the audios, the visualizations. It's I have a program to, well, we could get into it if, do you want to get into like the program that I'm working on and the program that I have now, or
yeah, that's a great idea. I'm such a good co-host. I'm just sitting here taking notes, like, teach me.
yeah.
Yeah, why don't you just share a little bit about what you have right now available in neuroalchemy because it is still a
Yeah.
work in progress. So right now,
It is. It is.
saying, Lost Mama is listening to us, trying to figure out who she is now after experiencing this type of thing, and she stumbled across you and your explanation. First of all, we're gonna link in the notes here a video Diana's YouTube video where she shares her
Mm,
story of loss because it is extremely powerful to hear
mm.
her full story. But beside that, if they were then to look up neuroalchemy, how would you help them? What's available to them?
Yeah, yeah. So again, for the lost mom, the best place to start with, I have a Angel Mama healing journey. It's a very inexpensive. It's $18. Really, it's a gentle place for you to kind of just go and land to. This is if like you have no idea how to gain ground, where you're just like, how do I even wake up in the morning and exist? Like it's really just a very gentle, soft program journey that kind of helps you kind of like set up your environment and then go through like some thinking and identifying of like where you're actually at, and then there's some audios there that kind of help you figure out like and guide you through to the woman that you're becoming through this pain. So that's one of the for a lost mom, I would start there. If like I think that's the best place to start. If you are it's if it's been some time where you've already had loss, or for anybody that really like that's working through identity crisis, or issues that you're facing, I offer empowerment code session. It's a transformational session, which is it's a customized approach. So it's really tailored to the individual. And what that one-on-one, so this is one-on-one work. So this is deep questions, really that uncover what is the subconscious structure, right? And the identity and the limitations that you have right now. So I'm mapping out your identity code, like who you are today, right now.
Yeah.
And and Carly, I would say like this day, because it's a full day. I mean, not a full day, but a couple hours where I will walk through these questions with you. And I had my breakthrough just with those questions alone, because they're very deep, and they bring up a lot to your awareness, you know? And so there's that for that first part of it, which is again those deep questions that uncover your current identity and structure,
Yep.
because it's also letting me know the structure that you have in place and how you're thinking about things.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that session is installing the new empowering beliefs, the new structure, the new identity. And that's where I would use the NLP processes. And on top of that too, what I add is the brainwave entrainment audio that you could go and continue listening to every day to kind of reinforce that transformation session.
Okay, so
So that is
this is a one-to-one package that you offer, and is like it's a two-part, like the first part where you do the deep questioning and you kind of like take stock of their warehouse.
yes.
And then
That's a
I
good
love
way.
the warehouse analogy. And then part
Yeah.
2 is where you give them a customized approach to here's things to listen to, here's the language we're going to relang.
It's a transformation session. So I will take everything that you have given me, and I will apply them to the processes and install them like new software into your mind. And so then you walk away. That one session alone, I mean, it's enough to reprogram the mind. I disrupt all the patterns you currently have to kind of allow for this new way of being. And then you also walk away with the brainwave treatment audio that's just going to reinforce that. But once you kind of once you shift, right, and you break a pattern, it's hard to go back. Like you have to really force yourself to go back to a pattern, and keep forcing. But that's what's so powerful with these sessions, is because I've already opened your mind, and you're already exposed to a lot more. And you're like, oh crap. Well, do I want to go back to that way of thinking? Do I like it's giving you more options in your brain waves, in your neural pathways that you have. So that is the one-on-one kind of work that I have available
Okay.
right now,
That's
besides the angel
really
moment
I
healing.
mean, that sounds really powerful. I feel like everybody would be like, sign me up, please." So, the thing that I recognize with a lot of clients is even when they've had the awareness come through, and even when they've like redecided what it is they want to think or how they want to react, and we work with their nervous system to allow that in. A lot of the time it's now I have this habitual or patterned thinking that I know you're like, we're breaking that and we're recoding and we're installing
Mhm.
new software. What if they find themselves being pulled back to an old automatic response? What do you do there?
Um, at that point, you're selectively and you're consciously choosing to go back to that thought.
Oh,
Because once you know what I'm saying, like you've already disrupted the pattern, so you're choosing to go back and reinforce it. So it's again coming to awareness of where you're at,
mhm.
and then choosing to, okay, it's time for me to shift this again, and use the tools that I've taught you and that you've learned
Yeah.
to reprogram, reframe, and repattern your life.
'Cause at this point now you have the tool. So if you find
Mhm.
yourself maybe in a slightly different context, kind of going down that old pathway, you can actually bring that to your conscious awareness and use the tools that you've been given through doing this one-on-one coaching.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And but so the one-on-one coaching really is that. But what I'm working on right now is a program that it's a multi-phase program that goes in much deeper, um, because it's a self-paced program, right? So it combines the education, the knowledge that you want to have, the subconscious reprogramming, and the transformational processes. So it's like broken up into 4 phases, um, where you it's an observation phase is the first one where you're understanding, okay, what are my current patterns? What are the current filters I have? What's my current identity? So what I do on the one-on-one work, but even deeper and self-paced. So you're really like learning them yourself, right? So that the first phase is the observation phase of where am I now? Who am I now? What is my identity? Then we go into the disruption phase where you're breaking down those limited beliefs, those emotional blocks. We're disrupting the patterns,
Cool,
right?
going with your sledgehammer for that part, and you
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And then teaching you, and then we're going to through the next phase is the installation phase, and that's where we're coding. Now we're coding the new empowering beliefs, the values, your identity, and these are like processes, right? These are processes that I teach you and that you have for the rest of your life, right? Again, to apply for everything.
So cool.
And and then the integration phase, so the fourth phase, so it's where we really anchor in the habits that you want to have, the practices, and anchoring really is huge. We do anchoring every day. We just don't know. That's something we could get into in a different conversation. But that is a program that I am working on that is to come soon. I'm just taking my time with it. Really, I'm putting my heart and soul into this one. So
That's a coming soon program, so, people
yeah.
who really want and this is specific for lost moms at this point? That one?
The empowerment code is specific to lost moms, but I'm also looking again with time and in time to do it just a general one for anybody, really. But since I very hold my stillbirth mom was my lost mom so deeply to me because it's how I started with everything, right? And this is what changed everything for me.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Okay, so if you are somebody who's a stillbirth mom, who's going through this type of loss or probably something quite similar, going to
Mhm.
Diana's NeuroAlchemy program, you've got your angel mama.
Angel Mama Healing Journey. That's a
Wanting
start.
journey
Yeah.
to start. And then there's this bigger journey coming soon, which is self-paced, which allows you to be reflective and go at it on your own.
Hmm.
And if you're somebody who wants to work one-on-one, Diana has that option, and that you can tailor to anybody. That's not just a lost mama thing. That you can tailor to anybody coming from any background, really wanting to clean out their warehouse and
Yeah.
reinstall the software.
Yes.
Amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. I'm signing up. So this episode, we're going to do a couple of light processes, and then perhaps I will do 2 days with Diana and come back
Ooh.
with a consumer report.
We gotta do it, Carly. We have to. Yeah, I think it'd be amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I love this so much. I love that you took your own healing experience, took everything that worked really well for you, and created something so powerful now to offer to others. And you do it with so much education and so much training and so much experience in a few different fields. And
Mm.
together for women. And now, you approached me about, hey, let's do this podcast because this really is about shifting identities.
Yes.
Whatever identity you're shifting out of, whatever identity you're shifting into, this podcast is for assisting that process. Maybe it's NLP that you're looking for. Maybe it's
Mhm.
understanding the way that the subconscious mind works and how we kind of get trapped in patterns. That's what you need. Maybe you're looking for, okay, I get all of that. And there's still this extra layer, and perhaps that's the spiritual layer.
Mm.
Layer that lives in your energy body. Perhaps that's the layer that lives in mean, we'll see. And we're here for all of that. That's all the worlds in which we live. And we're excited to dive more into um, how else you can be supported in your journey of identity.
Yes,
Any last words,
absolutely.
Diana, after all the amazing sharing you did with us today?
Um, let's see. Well, I think of I just encourage like anyone that's listening, after listening to this brief explanation, because really there could be so much broken down based on what I've discussed and what we've discussed here today, but really kind of encouraging you to kind of be reflective, on the day-to-day basis. Like what is my subconscious mind filtering right now? Just that simple act of intentional awareness is so big. And so I just encourage you, if you could take anything away from today, is just like, let me think about the way I'm thinking today. Let me think about like why I'm thinking today. And realizing I could actually change this. And so
Yeah, be empowered that you
yeah.
could actually change it. You're not stuck, you're not trapped. The way that your brain works right now is not the way that it has to work forever. It is all moldable. And, this is one of the ways that we can remold. You're so right, Dee. I'm not trapped. About the way you're thinking. And I think I want to have something that we invite our listeners to do every week. Eventually, I want to have discussion questions and a place for conversation. But until we have that, we do have the comment section. And I think if you're
Yes.
willing to ask yourself the question, if I think about
Mm.
how I'm thinking, what am I thinking that I would maybe like to change?
Yes, that's a great one. I love that.
Into the
Put that
topic.
in the comments. Yes. And we will be responding to the comments. We'll be very active there because we want to connect with you. That's what the whole point of this is too, is creating a community and having you feel less alone, right? Like, in this age of transformation and awakening that is happening.
Yeah. So I think it would be great if we created some real connection. I think it would be great if we created some real small groups who want to
Mm,
discuss these things and connect with us. We're available, we're here. We're really wanting to do that. So
yeah.
please get in touch and watch this space for future retreats, identity growing, identity shifting retreats.
Yes.
People who are coming into a deeper awareness of self need to be meeting together, connecting together, and encouraging one another. So watch the space
Mm.
for all of that.